let's talk about price. Where do we start with price? Well, right now in our environment, and it's been this way truly for a while because it's low inventory, but particularly right now in the suburbs, we are seeing a lot of bidding wars. And usually what happens is the listing agent slightly underprices the property and does a call for offers. And they do it intentionally because the market expects properties to be bid up, and because there's a psychological effect where sometimes people will pay a lot more than they would have knowing that they are competing with others. So the other time is sometimes it's not underpriced. That's really where I kind of evaluate it. And maybe the listing agent is just kind of chancing their arm, or they're being a little too cocky, or the seller just needs an offer by Monday because they're contingent on selling. So when we are in an offer deadline situation, basically they're asking us to go over asking, but we need to determine if that's justified. So we're going to look at the comparable sales and see if, using an appraiser's point of view, will this property appraise at a higher amount? We also need to take into account your budget. Property might be underpriced by $50,000, but you might not, this might be at the top of your budget and you don't have the other funds to do the renovations you want to do. So we have to take that into account. What I have been doing recently, and I wasn't a fan of prior to this year, are escalation clauses. So what an escalation clause is you have your offer price, let's say it's $700,000, and what the escalation says is that you agree to pay $5,000 over every other offer above yours up until, let's say, $750,000. Now these numbers can be whatever you want them to be. Typically want it to be a little bit more than $1,000, because if it's just $1,000 and someone else's terms blow us out of the water, it really is immaterial. So I've been employing this a lot recently, and I like it because if we know the property is going to go over asking, we know it's justified because of other properties that have sold in the area, but we don't see the data yet, then I like using this because it allows the market to determine what the price is. We're also seeing a lot of inconsistency. Some properties are going at asking, a little over asking. Some properties are going $100,000 over asking, and I'm not exaggerating. It is pretty crazy, especially in that entry-level price point, wherever that is in the area. It really depends on the town or the city or the neighborhood. So escalation clauses are great. I've been employing them quite a bit right now. If the property is new to market, fairly priced, and there is no deadline, a strategy that I like to use is go in at asking and as quickly as possible. Give them a no-brainer offer so that they take that property off the market. And in that case, your end goal is getting the property at asking price. And so you might concede on timing or terms because you want to get it at asking price. Now, when the property hasn't sold, and in my opinion, in 2 weeks, if the property hasn't sold, then that is fair game. We go in under asking. And determining that under asking price, again, we look at market data. We also take into account your budget, and we focus on, again, what our end price is. Because as when I go over the negotiation do's and don'ts, there's a dance to this, and we have to plan for the steps in between. So it's super fun. That's one thing I love to do, is look for properties that might have been overpriced or properties that aren't showing well. And that's where we can really have some fun negotiating and where you can have a little bit more buying power. So let's talk about timing. Timing is not only when you close, but it's also when you execute on the contracts in between. So again, we want to know the seller's motivation for closing, and that will often just dictate when they need to close. If anyone's renting out there, know that you don't pay your mortgage until 2 calendar months after closing. So for example, if you close in the month of October, whether it's October 1st or October 31st, your next mortgage payment is December 1st. So just keep that in mind. It usually helps people kind of determine what works for their move date. Now the purchase and sale, typically, as I said before, it's anywhere from 7 to 10 days. If you can get to that purchase and sale really quick, which is more work on our end, it's work on my end, the attorney's end, and on your end, and just to be available for the inspection and to be available to read through the inspection report, do our due diligence. I help with a lot of due diligence, but you just need to make sure you're available and have some time. So if we can do that really fast in 5 days or even less, then that is incredibly powerful, because the seller wants you to be locked in. And in their mind, once you sign the purchase and sale, you're locked in. So recently I had my client's offer was accepted for $30,000 less than the other offer, because we said we'd get to the purchase and sale in 3 days, and we did. And they were able to do a home inspection and all their due diligence. We just were hustling. The other thing that's really powerful is your offer deadline. When I go in, when I say that the property is there and the no-brainer offer, that's when I make a very fast deadline, meaning the seller has to respond to us very quickly. Now, sometimes they'll ask for 24 hours, but when they don't ask, I want the response time. Sometimes I've done a 2-hour response window, because what I'm trying to convey to them is this is a no-brainer. We're here, we're giving you exactly what you want, and let's get it done. So timing can be very powerful. And terms. So terms typically are going to be your financing terms and your inspection terms. So with financing, in most people, I'll say, do not have 20% down. So if any of my potentially shy first-time home buyers, just in case you didn't answer your poll, or most people don't have 20% down. So if you don't have 20% down, don't feel bad. The reality is if we're in a multiple offer situation and our offer is the same as someone else's offer and they have 20% down, they're going to prefer the 20% down. That doesn't mean you can't buy a property. Now, what we can do for your financing in a competitive situation is present your best foot forward. And that can either be in the approval that we show. A lot of people can be approved for a lot more money than what they actually want to spend in their based on their lifestyle. So for example, you might be approved for $800, but you only want to spend $650. So if we show the pre-approval for $800, then what it communicates to the seller is that this is going to be a no-brainer loan, whether they're putting 5% down or 10% down or 20% down. The other thing we can do if you're flexible with your down payment is show them that you can maybe do the offer price, depending, let's say your budget isn't that bigger, but you have the opportunity to put more down based on your finances. We can show the pre-approval letter with that 20% down and have the contingency based on the lower loan amount, or we can have both. We can have the contingency based on the lower loan amount and show the higher down payment with the pre-approval. Now, you are taking a little bit more risk when you do that latter option, and the risk is in that difference between the mortgage amount. So if we use something, just an easy number here, $500,000 is the purchase price. If you're doing 20% down, that's $100,000, that's a loan of $400, and you might choose then to only do $450. So if you're not going to get an approval for $400, you're probably not going to get a loan approval for $450. So there's minimal risk, but again, you have to figure out the different degrees that are comfortable for you. So let's talk about inspection. It's a big trigger point for the seller and buyers, because an inspector's job is to point out everything that is wrong with the property. And I remember my mother was she was looking into buying a second home, and they had a home inspection, and she was mad at the inspector. She said to him, "This is ridiculous. No one does this stuff. I've owned a home for 30 years and I've never done anything like this." And, of course I had to say, "Mom, it's his job to do this." So it's very funny, the old pro homeowners versus people who are new homeowners. It can be very overwhelming. So, and then for the sellers, they feel very vulnerable. They're like, "You think I'm a bad owner? You think I'm a bad house parent?" The house in a way is like their kid that they've taken care of all these years. So inspection's a big one. There's a number of different degrees we can do. So the most basic home inspection with the Greater Boston Real Estate Board offer documents, there's a dollar amount associated with that. And you can have that dollar amount be zero. That means you can basically walk away, you know, if you stub your toe in the property. So, or you can increase that amount. I've had clients increase it to as much as $10,000. And that has nothing to do with what we're going to negotiate. It's your walking away limit. So meaning you're not going to walk away if the repairs, structural, mechanical, safety repairs exceed $10,000. You're in the game, and you can have that amount be whatever you want, but you're showing that you have some skin in this. The next degree you can do is take that dollar amount and add an additional language that says, I am not going to negotiate. Let's say we say $5,000. If repairs or exceed $5,000, or I'm not going to, excuse me, let me say it a different way. If repairs, I will not negotiate on any repairs that are $5,000 and under. So you're not going to ask for a price change, a concession, or ask for repairs done if each item equals $5,000 or $2,000, whatever it is. You can add that additional language. And then the next degree, which I actually used on my own home, is what I call an as-is inspection. And what this means is you have the ability to walk away, but if you choose to stay in this transaction, you're not asking for anything. You're not asking for concessions, and you're not asking for them to do any repairs. Now, I did this on the house I'm living in right now because it was an off-market property and I knew it was undervalued, and I did not want it to go on the market because I knew if it went on the market, it would get bid up crazy amount. So I did my strategy of, you know, going in right at asking. I gave them, and I had really tight terms. I think I did a 30-day close, and I did an as-is inspection. I said, I want the ability to walk away, but I'm in this, and I'm going to deal with whatever comes up. And it's because I did my due diligence. I knew there was a lot of work, and my end goal was the price. I wanted it for that price. So, and then the final option for inspection is an informational inspection. In this case, you do not have an inspection contingency. So you can't negotiate anything. And if you choose to walk away, you're losing $1,000. So this really depends on the buyer's risk appetite. And usually people who are comfortable doing this, if the house is either in really, really good condition, we know all the systems are new, the roof is new, or maybe they are a contractor themselves. Now, you can waive an inspection outright. You can waive the financing terms outright. I don't recommend doing either of them. Financing, I mean, if you have cash, fine. But inspection, you have to understand there's no recourse when you waive your inspection. And I recently had a client insist on waiving an inspection because they were dying to have the house. And we found out right before we signed the purchase and sale that there is a sewage line. The town sewage line runs through their property and had leaked recently, which is why they redid the property. They redid the basement. So the town sewage was in their basement, which is so gross. And luckily, you know, we had very reasonable people on the other side that we were able to negotiate to have a longer P&S, do some more due diligence, and also get a little bit of a concession at closing because we had no legal recourse. So please understand when you are using these different levers that you will take calculated risks in real estate, but no property is worth something where you feel unsafe or uncomfortable.